Yo, KB again, and we're gonna go ahead and do part two of my story. Dun-dun-dun-dun. So I think I left off silly green hat. So I think I left off talking about my sales job, and so I became the best salesman in the office, and so I eventually left that sales office, and I went to work in other fields. And the guy I first went out with, he called me. The guy I first went out with and learned sales from, he called me and asked me if I wanted to go work for a guy that had come back to the city to start an office, sales office, and I wanted to be a sales manager. So I said, yeah, I'll come. So I did that for a while, and I built a very large crew that made a lot of sales. And so it was time to look for my own office, right? And so when I was, when that time came, I was like ready and eager to start an office. And my boss was like, he kind of changed his tune a little bit. He was like, you have to go look for your own office and pay for it. I said, okay, I'll teach you. So I had a guy in the neighborhood that was selling for me, and I had a couple people from the office that didn't mind coming to work for me. So I did that, and I started a sales office. And I started with nothing and worked my way into it very fast. And so the office was going well. It was growing, and the office was inside of this food stamp slash Social Security office, and probation was upstairs. So a lot of people coming in were unemployed and they were felons and they needed employment. And I wasn't too proud to hire a felon because I was a felon. So and they do make good workers. Some people don't want to take chances on them, but you should. And so it was going well. And my best salesman in the office, he was really good. And but he only wanted to go out by himself. He would never take, in the way a sales office works, or the one I ran worked, was that if I gave you a guy to train, that was your guy, and he became a part of your crew, and you could earn a stroke off of him. You could earn commission off of him. And I presented these bonus checks, these commission checks every Friday, and it gave the new guys a chance to chase after something and accomplish the same thing. So it was healthy for the office and everybody across the board. And so, every Friday I'd be like, oh, and such, my top salesman, he made this. I would add up his average that he made hourly according to his daily sales, and he was up there. He was in the $20-something range an hour, sometimes close to 30, and he was doing well. And but he never wanted to take someone out to train, and I was like, "What's going on there?" Oh, I just don't like it. I don't, it makes me nervous. I'm like, something else is wrong. So I started to notice that he had this pattern that when he had a really good day, like a $200 to $300 day, he would miss the next day. And so one day he's walking by me, and remember, before I left to come to the new city to live, I had experience with cocaine and cooking it and smoking crack. And so I knew that smell very well, and I liked it. So one day he comes walking by me kind of fast, and he was all cleaned up. He had missed the day before, and he smelled like crack. And I was like, man. So I called him. I said, Joe, oh, shouldn't have said his name, but there's a lot of Joes out there. So I said, hey, I want to talk to you in my office. He's like, okay, what's up, boss? I'm like, you walked by me. I noticed a pattern forming. Uh, when you make so much money, you have a really good day, you miss a day. And I see a pattern forming. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, boss. I just, I didn't feel well, whatever excuse he gave me. I can't remember. But I said, well, the reason I called you back here is because I smell crack cocaine on you when you walked by me. He said, no, boss, no. I said, save it, man. I said, I've done it, and I know what it smells like. And, and so, it took me a while to get it out of him. But what ended up happening was I said, call the dope man. Let's get high. And so he was like, no, boss, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. I said, yeah, I'm going to show you how to really get high. And so there's that addiction that I had planted before I came to Indy. And I had a lot of money at the time. So here's my mind telling me, it's that mental obsession telling me, dude, you got a lot of money. It's not going to affect you. You know how much comes in every day from all these salesmen. There's no way that this can bring you down. You're going to have lots of fun. And, remember, I didn't go looking for drugs because I didn't want to find trouble. And, drugs would find me. But, I would take breaks. And it wasn't really that big of a problem in my life at that time. And so here I am at the highest peak of my success career-wise. And so I started smoking crack. And it got really bad. But it took about a year and a half for anyone to really know. Maybe people knew, but they weren't saying anything because I still had some success at the office. But it turned into where I couldn't afford to purchase the merch. I would have to go make certain moves to get guys merchandise. I would have to borrow from Peter, how that whole thing goes. And so there's times guys came to the office and I didn't have any merch and I lied to them and I gave them some money, said thanks for showing up, but it's still not in from China. Whatever excuse I would give them, it's on the boat, it's coming from China. And, a lot of my merch did come from China, but it wasn't on no boat. And so, I lied to keep going. And, the whole time, sheriff's upstairs, it's probation office. And so we're getting high and I remember just kicking the guys out in the morning. We'd have a quick sales impact meeting. As soon as I could get them out, me and my salesman would just smoke all day. And, the story, I lost a lot of weight. And, just my addiction was full blown. And so I closed the office up because I couldn't do it anymore. And a funny story is I still had a lot of a certain item. We were selling stun guns at the time, and so I had quite a few of them, and me and my salesman were still getting high, and we were lazy that day. And he said, "I bet you can't go in that gun store and sell them." So I'm like, "Oh, they're not going to buy them because have they have them already, and they probably have a pretty good connection." But then, as we're getting ready to pass by, I said, he might be right, and I don't feel like going to the field to sell them. Click, and I turned in there. And so I go in there and I drop Don's guns, his wife. I drop all the stun guns on him. It's like 300 and something stun guns. And so I didn't have a steady stream besides the merch I would buy and he would sell and I would sell. So that created, I started to supply them monthly. And so that created another stream of money that I could spend crack on, or I could spend on crack. And so I'm off to the races again. With this thought in my mind that I'm going to gain control. I'm going to get back what I lost. It never happened. I was scheduled to get married around this same time. And my buddies came in from Chicago, I remember, and they're married, most of them except one. And so we're just guys' night out. We're hitting strip clubs, we're going to bars, and then we end up in the nightclubs in the evening. And so I was supposed to go. It was Saturday morning. They got here maybe 9, 10 a.m. And so we were in a strip club at about 12 to 1. I had stopped by the Marriott because we were going to get married at the Marriott and have the the reception and everything there. And they had a beautiful setup, and they set up and they break down. So it was good. And all you had to do was pay for plates, and I had money coming in every day. So it cost about 6,600, 6,700 to get married there, and I had it, and I had a little bit of money that I was gonna spend on the guys and strip club and drinking and have fun, and so I got high with one of the strip club owners on a regular basis, and so we go in there, or sorry, back up. I go to Marriott and I said, we're gonna have a really good time. I'm gonna take them to my buddies. And one of my other buddies, he did what I did, but nobody knew. I did. Me and him knew, but the rest of the guys didn't know. They didn't do drugs, and uh, so I found myself only handing the Marriott half of the half of the wedding money, and I put the other half in my pocket. I said, "Man, we're gonna have a really good time. I'll have this back in a week or something." And there's plenty of time before the wedding. We haven't even sent out invitations. I never recovered from that day, and ruined our marriage, our the chance to be married. I later took the ring back and went and bought drugs with it, and just it was a nightmare. So I remember the first time I got help, and it was my daughter was young; she was a toddler, and so you know I was there physically for the first 3.5 years of her life, but I wasn't there emotionally. She didn't know it, but I knew it. And so I would find myself in the evenings because her mother worked at the hospital, doing whatever I could to keep her occupied while I went in the bathroom or the garage and took a hit. And, I looking back, I feel really bad for that, but that's that insanity. And, and so one night, I'm out of money, and we had a credit line at the bank that I used to use. Her father was really good with finances, and he suggested, hey, get a credit line, buy the merch with the credit that you're gonna project to sell that month, and pay it off in 29 days with no interest, and you're gonna build the crap out of her credit, and now you'll be able to do more. I said, that's a good idea. Let's do it. So I did it. Well, that also was a means for me to use drugs. So, it was a certain amount, and it was quite a bit, and I had spent it, uh, probably 3/4 of it on drugs, and she didn't know. Um, there's quite a bit of money coming in, and so, you know, there was still that trust there, and um, so she didn't regularly. I don't know why I can't say that word. Um, check our bank accounts, credit line, savings, checking. It wasn't regularly checked because there was thousands in there, and so, but it had dwindled down to nearly nothing, and so I call her. It's like 3, 4 a.m. She's at the hospital. She's like, "What's wrong?" I said, I can't do it no more." And she's like, "I knew something was going on." I said, "Have you checked the bank account?" She's like, "No." And yeah, she checked the bank account, and very upset, but she understood, and she said, "I'm gonna get you a bed at the stress center." I said, "Okay, thanks." So I went into uh, the stress center. up on the north side, and and I got help, but it was only for about 8 days, and and so they referred me to an inpatient, and I went, and I can't remember if I got high before going in or not, but I met a girl in the stress center. Of course, she was married, but really was kind of like a gold digger. She was only married to the guy because he had a really good job, kind of thing, and it was good for her. But she often cheated, and she was on drugs, and she was really pretty, and so it started off me and her going to meetings. Her husband knew, and my fiance knew, and it was just all bad. I ended up using something I didn't normally use, heroin, and so I got addicted to that for about 30, 45 days, and then I detoxed off of it. But I think this was after I got out of inpatient rehab. I'm not sure. It was because I went in there immediately. But I remember coming out and feeling great, and like the experience of being in a rehab and seeing other recovering addicts work at the rehab. It made me feel really good, and like I saw the reward they got from it, and how it wasn't really a job for them. It was a passion, and that I wanted a part of that. And so I had started many little small businesses and had the office too, and so I knew what it took to do something like that, and I knew it wasn't hard as long as you put effort towards it. So I said, what can I do? What can I do? I'm sick of the sales office scene because it's just a vicious circle. You're constantly selling guys dreams, and I don't want to do it anymore. I want to put together something that helps people. And so I thought of an idea, and I'm like, I'm gonna chase this. And it was for an outpatient facility, and so I started to come up with a plan, and but it was my first time in recovery, and I didn't understand that I needed to treat my disease every day, and I needed to follow direction, and I needed to thoroughly do things that were suggested to me, and I didn't do it. I went to meetings. I think I got a sponsor, but I didn't work the steps. I didn't have that daily relationship with God, and I eventually relapsed. I relapsed with her, and then eventually one day she's like, I can't get any heroin, and I'm like, well, I can get some crack, and so here I go again, off to the races with my drug of choice. So rehab, after rehab, jail. Um, that's how it went. And the wedding was canceled. I left home. I would leave rehabs with girls and get an apartment. One year, I had just moved out of the rehab, and I was dating a girl in the rehab because she had a car. That's the main reason I did it, because I wanted to borrow the car to go sell merch and make a come up. And so I get in a halfway house down the street thanks to her car and our relationship. And I was justifying it by taking care of her, putting gas in the car, buying her cigarettes, whatever she needed, I did for her. And we were in a relationship. Rehab romance. Two sickos don't make a wello, right? Oh, that's right. And so my best friend always called me Fabio. Whew, I hated him for that. And so that was really my downfall a lot in rehab, was going to a co-ed rehab and just being sober, but it kind of feeling like a fraternity or a bachelor pad for me, kind of thing. Like I got focused on wanting to appeal to the women instead of my recovery. So I finally realized what was going on, and I tried to fix that. And so I'm in her car one day. Um, it was a Sunday, and I was supposed to have a daddy-daughter date. I was going to take my daughter to the movies. And I pull up in this car, and it's her car. And the mother of my daughter is like, whose car is that? And I'm like, I'm working on this program. It's a girl's car at the center. Really? Are you seeing her? Kinda. Yes. My daughter's not getting in that car. So I was like, really? Come on. I had the whole day played. Nope, she's not getting another woman's car. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I take off. I'm mad. And anybody out there, when you know the book, what did that anger turn into? What did the anger turn into? A resentment that carried into the next day. And I'm still I'm still mad. And so Monday, I had just received some merch. I think I went and bought merch. And so Mondays, like uh, barbershops, beauty shops, nail shops, they were closed. So I would normally go sell to gas stations, and I knew a lot of gas stations that would take my whole, load of merchandise, and that was kind of the easy way out. So I stopped by one of these gas stations, and I'm walking in, and my dope man's walking out. No, I had just sold out. I'm filling up my tank, and I'm walking back in to get something to drink, and maybe buy something, and he's walking out, and I got all these key tags. I'm like almost 100 days clean. And he's like, man, my number's still the same, blah, 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 blah. And so my obsession again. I know how he works. I'm going to call him from my new number. He's not going to answer. He lets it go to voicemail. I leave a message. He knows it's me. He calls back. So I said, if he calls back before I hit the stoplight before my halfway house, I might go cop some. And sure enough, he did. I mean, like, literally almost before that stop sign. I'm getting ready to pull up, and the phone's going off, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, you need something? I'm like, yeah, let me do 50. I was like,